NorthDakotaChapter.com. The Legislature Today is brought to you by the North Dakota Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties, the Credit Union Association of the Dakota, the University of Mary, the North Dakota Corn, Soybean and Grain Growers Association, and the North Dakota Ethanol Council, the Northwest Landowners Association, Touchstone Energy Cooperative, North Dakota Rural Electric Cooperatives Association, and members Minnesota Power and Great River Energy, the North Dakota chapter of Concerned Women for America, the Expressway Inn and Suites, where a good night's rest costs less, and the Peacock Alley. It's time to get started. Another hour of the Legislature Today is on the air.
This is Dale Wetzel. This is the Legislature Today. We're coming to you from the Peacock Alley, American Bar and Grill in downtown Bismarck, North Dakota. And the bar is fairly well full tonight. There's a lot of excited buzz on the floor, and this is a good place, the Peacock Alley, to come for a drink or a meal. I certainly encourage you to do so. It's conveniently located in downtown Bismarck, North Dakota, and the recent snowstorm that we've had is no longer impeding parking, so you can come down, park your car, and have a drink, have a meal, and enjoy yourself. This hour of the Legislature Today is sponsored by the Credit Union Association of the Dakotas. We have with us this evening Jeff Olson, who is the Vice President for Advocacy and Awareness for the Credit Union Association of the Dakotas, which covers, as the name implies, North Dakota and South Dakota. In a moment, we're going to have on the phone a woman named Felicity Guerin, the development manager for Credit Unions for Kids of the Credit Union National Association in Washington, D.C. We're going to have her on the telephone. Later on in the show, we're going to have a couple of new state legislators. We're going to have Kylie Overson, a Democrat from Grand Forks. She represents the University of North Dakota as part of her district. We also have Republican Ben Koppelman, who is a Republican from West Fargo, a business person in West Fargo, and his father, Kim Koppelman, is also in the legislature. Kim Koppelman is the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. We're going to be speaking to them about their impressions of their first legislative session, which I think we all hope will be wrapped up by the end of next week. At the very least, I think we're facing a deadline of Friday, May 3rd, which would be the 80th day of the legislature, and according to the North Dakota Constitution, the legislature can't go further than 80 days. It can't last longer than 80 days every 2 years, and hopefully we won't have to find out what happens when they run out of time and don't have all their work done. I'll give you a quick summary of what happened in the legislature today. The most significant development was late in the day. The North Dakota House approved a constitutional amendment that would replace the State Board of Higher Education and also the chancellor of the North Dakota University system. Now, don't panic. This doesn't go into effect unless the voters approve it, and this will be on the ballot in November of 2014. But unless the House reconsiders its vote tomorrow, which I think is rather unlikely, this will be on the ballot in November of 2014. And what this would do is abolish the Board of Higher Education, make the chancellor unnecessary, and appoint a 3-member higher education commission. These people would be full-time. They'd be appointed by the governor, and they'd be in charge of running North Dakota's public university system, which consists of 11 colleges across the state. They would serve 4-year terms. Their initial terms would be staggered to make sure that there wasn't too much turnover, but they would eventually serve 4-year terms, and they would be limited to 3 terms of service. So the most a person could serve as a higher education commissioner would be 12 years. And they would have, in the words of the amendment, the full executive responsibility to run North Dakota's public college campuses. There was some debate in the House today about whether this arrangement would jeopardize the accreditation status of any of the schools in the university system. There was some doubt about whether that would actually happen. We'll, I imagine, be able to develop that argument further as the campaign gets underway. But one thing is for sure, we're going to have a very interesting general election on the measures ballot, because with this higher education constitutional amendment. We also have something that's only slightly less controversial. We have the Life Amendment is what the supporters call it. It says that the state of North Dakota will support life in all stages of development and defend and protect it. And this amendment was pushed by people who oppose abortion, and there's a number of questions about what its practical effects would be. We also, in the legislature today, in the Senate approved a couple of bills that have gotten quite a bit of public attention. One of them toughens penalties for cruel acts to animals. The other creates a regulatory regime for raw milk transactions. Raw milk is unpasteurized milk. Thousands of North Dakotans like to drink it. It is banned from sale in North Dakota, but what you can do is buy what's called a cow share. You can purchase the share of a dairy cow and get that cow's milk from the dairy farmer who keeps the cow for you. And this bill started out as a way to try to ban the sales of raw milk or ban these cow share arrangements, and so that got folks stirred up pretty good. But what the final product is, it seems reasonably benign. It does say that a dairy farm has to make the Department of Agriculture aware of its cow share agreements with folks, but the people who crafted this bill wanted to make sure that people who are drinking raw milk or getting it from dairy farms would be able to continue to do so. Well, as I mentioned, this hour is sponsored by the Credit Union Association of the Dakotas. And we have with us Jeff Olson, who's Vice President for Advocacy for this organization. We also have on the phone Felicity Guerin, who is the Development Manager for Credit Unions for Kids, the Credit Union National Association in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Ms. Guerin.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. It's good to have you, ma'am. How are things out in D.C. right now? Tell us what the weather's like.
It's not too bad. It's a little cold for April, though.
Well, tell us what
jacket weather.
Tell us what you mean by cold, because the definition of cold in North Dakota is might be a bit different from yours.
True. I think it's in the 50s.
Well, that is not cold, ma'am. Please, you got to adjust your thinking here.
We're wearing shorts at 50 degrees.
50 degrees, you're out mowing your yard and playing golf in North Dakota, and you are definitely not wearing a jacket. So, Ms. Guerin, tell us about what is Credit Unions for Kids?
Sure. Credit Unions for Kids is the brand under which credit unions nationwide come together to raise money for their local Children's Miracle Network hospital.
And how did you click into the Children's Miracle Network Hospital as a beneficiary of your fundraising?
That's a great question. Credit unions have a lot in common with their local children's hospitals that maybe isn't so obvious at first. So like credit unions, the Children's Miracle Network hospitals are also not-for-profit, and they're also focused on serving underserved markets and reaching out to people who aren't always reached. So there was a strong affinity there for credit unions and local children's hospitals. So what happened originally was credit unions across the country were partnering with their local children's hospital, and it kind of became known throughout the industry that different credit unions were working with their different hospitals. So instead of being a bunch of little supporters of local hospitals, we created this brand and kind of rolled it up into one overarching big supporter of Children's Miracle Network hospitals in general.
And how does one become a Children's Miracle Network hospital? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, it's actually very, very competitive to become part of the network. So there's 170 hospitals that are currently part of the network that are located in North America. All of the children's hospitals in Canada are actually Children's Miracle Network hospitals. And then there's 150-ish in the United States. And in order to be considered to be part of the network, you have to be a not-for-profit hospital. You also have to have a focus on research and development and technology, as well as a real commitment to progression and, I guess, truly being the best of your class. So, for instance, when U.S. World and News Reports ranks the 12 top pediatric hospitals, 11 of those are Children's Miracle Network hospitals. So you really have to be the best of the best in order to be considered to be part of this network.
So when you mentioned a commitment to progression, you're talking essentially about a commitment to improve and to be good at what you're doing?
Absolutely. They all commit to focus on research and improving children's health care.
When I was looking at the phrase credit unions for kids, I wondered if this is an organization that encourages children to get accounts at credit unions and learn financial lingo and financial management. Is that part of it or not?
No, it's actually a bit of a misnomer, I think, calling it credit unions for kids. However, it actually is Credit Union Youth Week, so credit unions all across the country are focusing on engaging younger members this year or this week, but it doesn't actually have to do with our Credit Unions for Kids brand.
Do you know if is there a minimum age by which you can come in and open a credit union account?
I think it would probably depend based on the credit union, but I'm pretty sure my parents opened my first credit union account when I was just a baby.
And what credit union was that, ma'am? Do you mind saying?
No, I was actually a member of Navy Federal Credit Union from potentially before I was born, if that's possible, though I don't think it is.
So was it your father or your mother or both who were in the Navy?
My father was career Navy.
Okay. And how long have you been involved with credit unions for kids, ma'am?
So I've been involved with credit unions for kids for 10 years. I actually started out simply as a volunteer. There's a big race in Washington, D.C., which is one of the largest fundraisers for credit unions for kids. And so I was part of the Cherry Blossom 10-mile run marketing team, and we just encouraged other credit unions to get involved with the race. And so I was a volunteer for many years with that, and through that I got to meet the contacts who work for Children's Miracle Network hospitals at their headquarters in Salt Lake City. And so when this position became available, I was lucky enough to have my hat tossed in the ring by them. And so then I've been officially working with the charity for almost 3 years now.
When you were part of the Cherry Blossom 10-mile run marketing team, did that mean you had to run the 10 miles?
Thankfully, no.
Okay.
I am much, much better at cheering than running.
Okay. You mentioned we were talking about the Children's Miracle Network. Which are there hospitals in North Dakota and South Dakota that are part of that network? And if so, can you tell me which ones they are?
Yeah, absolutely. I think North Dakota actually only has one purely children's hospital, which is Sanford Children's Hospital in Fargo, and that is one of our Children's Miracle Network hospitals. And there are two located in South Dakota. So that would be Sanford Children's Castle of Care Hospital in Sioux Falls. And Rapid City Regional Hospital has a children's hospital inside of it on its third floor. And that would be in Rapid City, South Dakota. So those are our three Children's Miracle Network hospitals that are in the Dakotas.
And what are their... Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, one thing that's really another reason that credit unions choose to partner with Children's Miracle Network hospitals, and something that makes them very distinct from any other charity, is that every single dollar that the credit union or the member donates at the credit union stays local. So even though Children's Miracle Network Hospitals is headquartered in Salt Lake City in Utah, every single dollar, every single penny of that dollar goes back to the local hospital. So all of the network costs are underwritten by sponsors, not credit unions, that which enables them to send every single dollar back to the local hospital. So if a credit union in Fargo is raising money for Children's Miracle Network hospitals, every single dollar that they raise will go to the hospital that will help kids in Fargo.
Which of the credit unions in the Dakotas are involved in the fundraising?
We actually have 35 different credit unions in the Dakotas that are involved with Children's Miracle Network hospitals. which is great. We've been seeing a big jump thanks to Jeff and his team. There's been a real increase in our credit union participation over the past few years. In fact, the Credit Unions for Kids program in the Dakotas is growing 3 times as faster than any other state and twice as fast as any other corporate partner that supports Children's Miracle Network hospitals. So y'all should be very proud of that. We're quite excited.
And you alluded to this before, but how is it that the credit unions go about raising money for the hospitals?
The credit unions really take it upon themselves to come up with some great and creative fundraisers to raise money for the kids. We do have a couple national fundraisers. There's a change drive that we run in March and April, which a bunch of the credit unions participate in. But the biggest national fundraiser for the Dakota Credit Unions is Miracle Jeans Day, which we celebrated in September. So we saw I think almost a 600% increase 2012 over 2011 with credit unions in the Dakotas participating. It was really exciting to see. So the North and South Dakota credit unions challenged themselves, and they had a little war going on over Twitter to see who could have the most credit unions sign up and which state could have them raise the most money for their local hospitals. So it was really fun to see that.
And how much money is raised, ma'am, on an annual basis in the Dakotas?
The Dakotas have raised, well, I know since we created the Credit Unions for Kids brand in 1996, credit unions nationally have raised over $110 million for Children's Miracle Network hospitals. We raised $10 million just last year alone. And the Dakotas have raised over $100,000 since we started the Credit Unions for Kids brand. So it's a lot of money, a lot of miracles.
Ms. Guerin, and first of all, you just a lot of miracles. Tell us about some of what sort of medical services are offered here.
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Well, really, the best, most cutting-edge research and equipment technology is going to be found at Children's Miracle Network hospitals. So there's the neonatal intensive care units and pediatric intensive care units, oncology wards, cardiology wards, many, many specialties. And it's just fascinating. The more involved I get with the children's hospitals, the more I learn how their medicine and their care and their treatment needs to be very different from adult medical treatment. So it's so important to have a hospital that really specializes in kids. And so a lot of the funds that we raise money for in the Dakotas goes to uncompensated care, so children whose parents don't have insurance or the insurance isn't enough to cover their treatment. It also goes to improving equipment and technology so that oftentimes the equipment can mitigate pain or make treatments shorter or more efficient. So it really helps the children's quality of care, as well as, for instance, in the NICU, there are certain beds that are called giraffe beds that really can improve the chance of the baby's survival very, very greatly. So they're very important to have, but they're not covered by insurance. So it's something that a hospital can't necessarily purchase without donations.
Mr. Olson, Ms. Guerin was giving you some credit there for getting interest going in the Dakotas on this credit unions for kids. What sort of work have you been doing there?
Well, we need to do a better job telling our story a little bit, and so and really the last couple of years we've kind of upped the ante a little bit, and because we've had credit unions being involved in community service for many years, and the Children's Miracle Network program was something that we really could hang our hat on, and so we kind of went out and said, you know what, this and a bunch of other things is something that we want to promote and tell people about, and what we're doing and the social good that we're doing. In fact, it kind of prompted us to launch a website called CU Social Good. And it was something we officially launched in 2013 at the start of this year, and it's a website created by the Credit Union Association of the Dakotas here in Bismarck. But it's really a website that's dedicated solely to the sharing of good things that credit unions do for the people in their communities. And it's not just to the Dakotas. It's a website that's gone global. We have stories being submitted from all over the world, and of good things that credit unions are doing out there.
And what are some of those?
Well, there's stories about, we're doing charitable contributions, volunteer work, financial literacy programs, helping people out that are struggling financially and really don't have the wherewithal and how to really do home budgeting and managing household funds, to providing scholarships to kids to go on to secondary school and higher education. Basically anything that a credit union is doing inside their community, we're providing that venue or that vehicle for them to tell that story, and it's just exploding. It's really fun to see.
What else does this CU Social Good website do besides facilitate the sharing of stories?
Well, it's done a bunch of other things. It really is kind of linked to other websites that are kind of doing the same thing, and now we've become kind of the clearinghouse for these great stories that are going on. For example, CU for Kids, which is what Felicity's been talking about here. They're linked to it. CU Heroes, CU Broadcast, our Smarter Choice. .org, which is really what credit unions do. It's a financial alternative. So people who are really looking, can I be a member of a credit union? What is a credit union going to do for me? What do they do in the community? And so we're linked to all these great sites that are telling great stories out there. So
how long have you been involved in this?
It's kind of been the brainchild of our CEO, Robbie Thompson, that kind of started it about mid last summer, and we got it launched in January, and we've had just phenomenal success. We've had 1,100 website hits in March. In April here, we're not quite done with the month. We're almost nearly to 1,500 hits. So it's something that's just gone global, and it's a great thing to tell.
Who works this web? Who administers it? Who works it?
We do it right here out of Bismarck with the Credit Union Association of the Dakotas. We have a staff member, Sean Brummer, who collects the stories, and she works with our IT department, Steve Rorick, and they set up the site, and they go through the criteria of each story to make sure that it fits the criteria that we've set up in that model, and they launch it, and then we set it up to the other links, and it goes global.
We've been speaking to Jeff Olson. He's the Vice President for Advocacy and Awareness for the Credit Union Association of the Dakotas. The Credit Union Association of the Dakotas is the sponsoring organization for this hour of the Legislature Today radio program, and we're grateful for their support, because without the support of organizations like the Credit Union Association of the Dakotas and other organizations that sponsor this show, well, we wouldn't have one, and we do think that we provide a useful service and spreading news about the legislature and public policy in general. We also were speaking to Felicity Guerin, the Development Manager of Credit Unions for Kids for the Credit Union National Association in Washington, D.C. And Ms. Guerin, enjoy your 50-degree weather out there.
Thank you, I will.
My name is Dale Wetzel. This is the Legislature Today.
In a credit union, your loans, your interest, all stays in your community. I not only got a great mortgage rate on my home loan, they also referred me to another person in the credit union to refinance my pickup. And I got such a great rate on that, I saved enough money to buy a camper, which is fun for me. It's kind of like one-stop shopping. You have all your banking needs in one place. They know you, you know them.
Experience the credit union difference. Visit cuontheroad.org.
We had decided to refinance our house. For some reason, I had decided to look at a national home lending source. I'm still kicking myself for that. And really because they didn't know who I was, they didn't, really value my needs and my individual situation. Came to the credit union with my head hung in shame. They didn't beat me up about it. They just said, hey, we're glad you're here. We can work with you.
Experience the credit union difference. We've been waiting for you.
About 6 years ago, our daughter was going to school at a beauty academy in West Virginia. Her car had broken down. So we went to a car dealership. They did a credit check on her, and she wasn't creditworthy in order to get the car loan. So I called the credit union in my hometown, and they, within 20 minutes, had the money in my account. And we drove away from that dealership in a car that was affordable for her, and that she could afford the payments. It's been a very pleasurable experience working with a credit union.
Experience the credit union difference. Visit cuontheroad.org.
KFYR, K-Fire.
Gone fishing.
Hi, this is Phil Parker inviting you to join me at Ballard's Resort on Lake of the Woods, July 4th through the 7th. 2 days guided walleye fishing, 3 nights accommodations, and motor coach transportation. For more details, go to the Phil Parker Show page at KFYR.com.
The 13th Annual Dakota Community Bank and Trust PBR Bull Riding Challenge, June 14th and 15th, Bismarck Civic Center. Featuring 90 of the world's top bull riders, along with bull superstars from 3-time Stock Contractor of the Year, Chad Herder Bucking Bulls. See 4-legged superstars, SmackDown, Flint, Prince Albert, and more. Plus, PBR entertainer Flint Rasmussen returns again this year. Tickets on sale April 20th at the Bismarck Civic Center and through Ticketmaster, 800-745-3000. This is the PBR, June 14th and 15th, Bismarck Civic Center.
KFYR, Bismarck.
Clear Channel Media and Entertainment seeks an experienced account executive to take over an established sales list. This is a rare opportunity to represent a high-performing